Okay guys, so today we're going to go over test 3 and I'm going to do some of the questions on this part 1 of the video and the rest will be in part 2. The first question, number 1, a balloon is released from the top of a building. The graph shows the height of the balloon over time. What does the slope and y-intercept reveal about the situation? Well, first of all, we know that the balloon is released and if you think of a balloon, if it has helium inside, it's going to keep on going up. So that's why we see this line that's going up. We see that it starts somewhere, and as time passes, as the seconds pass, the height increases. So this balloon is going up in the sky. We're being asked, what does the slope and y-intercept reveal about the situation? Okay, so first, we have to figure out what the slope is. Anytime you have a graph and you're trying to find the slope of the graph, you pick 2 points. And remember guys, slope is rise over run. To go from the first point to the second point, I'm going to go from, and this is where a lot of people got confused. This height is being represented in 1,000 feet. So the units are in 1,000s. They're not in ones. This is for example, this first one does not represent 1 foot. It represents 1,000 feet. So we're going from 1,000 feet to 2,500 feet. How do you go from 1,000 to 2,500? You have to go, you rise 1,500 feet. And then how much do we run? To go from this point to this point, well, we rose 1,500 feet, and we have to run, and if you look at the scale, 10 seconds. Okay, so if we put this in a calculator, 1,500 divided by 10, it will give us 150, and I apologize for my handwriting, 150 feet per second. Okay, so that's our slope. And our y-intercept, remember that's where the line crosses the y-axis. This is the y-axis, and the line crosses the y-axis right here. Remember we said this 1 stands for 1,000 feet. So our y-intercept is 1,000 feet. Based on what the problem tells us, we know that this stands for the height at which the balloon was released. So if we read all of these, the balloon starts at a height of 1,000 feet, yes. The balloon starts at a height of 1,000 feet, yes. C, the balloon starts at a height of 150, no. D, the balloon starts at a height of 150, no. Let's go back to A and B. The balloon rises at a rate of 150 feet per second, yes. And B says the balloon falls at a rate of 150 feet per second. Nope, it's not falling. It's actually rising because the height of the balloon is increasing over time. So the answer has to be A. Number 2, we want to calculate the slope of the line containing these 2 points. So we want to start by first making ourselves a t-table, a t-chart. And we put our points there. To go from 3.5 to 8.5, we have to add 5. To go from negative 6.7 to 3.3, we have to add 10. And I do apologize, guys. I am getting sick, so you might hear me sneezing, and my voice sounds a little bit different. My slope is the change in y over the change in x. And the change in y is 10, and the change in x is 5. So my slope is 2. So the answer is C, the answer is 2. Number 3. Find the x and y intercepts. Write them as ordered pairs. Remember, the x-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis. So here's the x-axis, here's our line, and this is where they cross. So the x-intercept is at -1. All of them tell us that the x-intercept, well, actually no. The x-intercept is at -1, so that's either C or D. I'm going to cross out A and B. And the y-intercept, that's where the line crosses the y-axis, is at -5. So our answer has to be D. Number 4, find the x and y intercepts of that equation. Okay, so anytime I'm finding the x or y intercepts from an equation, I write down the equation twice. And then let's start by finding the x-intercept. I'm going to cross out the y. And then to solve for x, I need to divide both sides by 3. And I end up with, I'm going to have to write it at the top. X equals -3. To solve for the y-intercept, I cross out the x with the number in front of it. And in this case, the y is being multiplied by -1. So I'm going to divide by -1. And I end up with y equals -9. So looking through my answers, the only ones that make sense are, I know that my x-intercept is at -3, so I can right away cancel out A and D. And I know that the y-intercept is at -9, so the answer has to be B. What is the equation of a line with a slope of 0 and passing through the point 5, -5? Anytime we're looking at something with a slope of 0, we know that we're looking at a horizontal line. Because with a horizontal line, you can make a z for 0. Okay, so the very first thing we want to start doing is putting our point on our coordinate plane. So we have 5, -5 is down here. We know that we're looking at a horizontal line, so our line is going to look something like this. And this is 5, -5. And we know that this point crosses, this is where the line crosses the y-axis, so this is a y-intercept. Anytime we're looking at the y-intercept, we know x is 0. We just have to figure out what is the y. And based on the point that we placed at the beginning, we know that the y has to be -5. What do these points have in common? They both have a -5, and the -5 is a y value. So y equals -5. Any point that you pick on this line is going to have -5 in the y value. So that's why we always say that the answer is y equals -5. That's, well, not the answer, but our equation. And you could actually put this in a calculator. You could say, you could go to y equals, and then y equals, you could put -5, press graph, and we will get the same graph. If you're still having doubts, you can press second table, and in the table you would see the point 5 comma negative 5. So it definitely does have the point. And again, we know that it has to be horizontal because a horizontal line makes z for 0. So that's the only one that makes sense. Okay, so let's go on to problem number 6. Write the slope intercept form of the equation graph below. Okay, so again, we need to find the slope, and we need to know what the y-intercept is. Okay, so to find slope from the graph, you always do rise over run. So we know m equals rise over run. We pick 2 points on that graph, and I'm going to pick these two. To go from the first one to the second one, I have to rise, well, okay, let's do it this way. I have to run 1, 2, 3, and I have to rise 1, 2. But because I'm going down, that's my rise is negative 2. Just a quick way to double check yourself. Anytime you're looking at slope, if the line's going down, you know the slope has to be negative. If it's going up, it has to be positive. So just make sure you end up, in this case, we should end up with a slope that's negative because our line's going down. Okay, so I have y equals, the slope always goes in front of the x, negative 2/3 x, and at the end is where I put the y-intercept. Here's my line, here's my y-axis, and the intercept right here. So the y-intercept is at negative 2. So the only answer that makes sense is B, and so that's my answer. 7. Find the equation of the line that passes through those 2 points. Again, anytime you're given 2 points, you want to start by first finding their slope. You find the slope by putting them on a t-table. You add 2 to get from 4 to 6. You subtract 4 to go from negative 5 to negative 9. Slope is the change in y over the change in x, so negative 4 over 2, which is the same thing as negative 2. Okay, so I figured out my slope is negative 2. Now I need to pick a point. I'm going to work with the first one. And so I know that the 4 is my x, and I know the negative y, the negative 5 is my y. So I'm going to use those 3 pieces of information to plug into y equals mx plus b. Again, you could have chosen the second point. You would have just been working with a 6 for the x and a negative 9 for the y. But I'm going to choose to work with the first point. I'm going to plug in negative 5 for the y. I'm going to plug in negative 2 for my slope. The slope always goes in front of the x. And the x value I'm going to be working with is 4, based on the point I chose. Plus b. I have negative 5 equals negative 8 plus b. I'm going to draw my line. To get this b by itself, because that's the only variable I have, that's the variable I'm solving for, I need to get rid of this 8. I'm going to move this 8 to the other side. Since I'm subtracting 8 because that's a negative 8, the opposite is to add 8. So I end up with b equals 3. Okay, so now if I want to write the equation of my line, the equation would be y equals negative 2x plus 3. The slope, again, always goes in front of the x, and the y-intercept always goes at the end. And the answer is Okay, so make